Who's Hannah Snow, and with her presentation on UNCRC and me, what I wish I'd known about my rights. Hannah's a really inspiring young woman who's done incredible work to raise awareness around the gaps in our systems via the Scottish Drug Death Task Force, and she's really keen to continue her message at this conference. And she's passionate about sharing her story with all of you and with professionals about the fact that she was feeling that she didn't know enough about her rights, and that without knowledge of them, they're impossible to claim. So I'm hugely privileged and very excited to pass the floor now to you, Hannah.
Thank you very much, Bruce. I'm so nervous. my heart's beating so fast. Thank you for introducing me. Like you said, I'm here to talk about my experience in the care system, and I've heard some really amazing things today, and I'm proud how this is progressing. I'm just going to share you a little bit about my story and my interactions with the child services and then into the criminal justice system. And my first intervention with social work was at about the age of 9 or 10. And it was very confusing for me because it was never explained. I was never sat down and explained as to, why I was having to spend time with this person. Why I was going and doing activities with this person. Why were they picking me up from school? Why was I getting taken away from my family? And I also feel really strongly, it was never sat down and asked. I was never asked, why are you behaving in the way you're behaving? Like, what's going on for you? What's happening inside? What are you feeling inside? And at that time, there was a lot of sexual abuse going on. There was a lot of horrific things going on in my life that nobody ever sat down and said, you're behaving like this, you're acting like this in school, you're acting like this at home. What's going on? It was, I'll take you to play some crazy golf, and let's go to the cinema. Let's go and have something to eat. And I was really, really scared at that point. And I was made to feel, I felt then that really uncomfortable. I didn't, I didn't feel like there was no emotional connection. Every 5 to 6 months, I would get a new social worker. I would go through having to build up a relationship with them. And it got to a point for me by the age of 11, I had just shut down. I had shut down because there was so much things going on in my life at that point that I just felt let down. I felt really let down by a service that I didn't know was a service. I just didn't know what was going on. And the children's panel, I was going back and forth to a children's panel, and it was almost like I was getting talked about like I wasn't there. I would be sitting, there would be me, my parents, my social worker, and then the 3 board members, and they're all having a conversation about you whilst you're sitting there. And, if I reacted in any way, it would be a sign of, oh, see, there's something wrong, and whilst all this was going on, I came under that. My parents were telling me that I was diagnosed with a disorder that turned out when I was an adult that it was all a lie, and I was telling this social worker and I was telling the children's panel what was going on at home, and I was getting called a liar, and that woman before Juliet talked about dignity, like where was that when I'm a child and I'm getting told I'm a liar, and I feel so lost and confused and helpless. Like I had nobody, and it was horrific, and my behavior escalated. And there was a few interventions before I went into care, and I got taken and placed in care of my brother, who was an active heroin addict. And I got placed into that care, and there was no food, there was no electric. There was people coming in and out the house consistently. And it was horrific, and where was the risk assessment? Where was the intervention? Where was the sitting down with the social worker that was supposed to protect me, and looking at the house, looking at the fridge, looking at the cupboards, evaluating my brother's mental health and the security in that home. There was none of that. You know, sorry, I'm just flicking my page because I've got some notes. And then getting taken into care. And the way I got taken into care was also very traumatizing. I got woken up and I got told that I was by this point I went back to stay with my parents, and my mum had came and woken me up, and she said that we were going shopping. She said, I want you to go get changed, we're going shopping. And I was 12. And I went downstairs and there was 2 police officers, 2 social workers, and 2 people from the home I was going to. And they told me that I was going. They told me that they told me I was going to Dundee, and they didn't tell me for how long. They didn't tell me what the environment was going to be like. They didn't tell me. The only thing they said to me was, you're going to get some respite. How does a 12-year-old know what respite means? And they took me to Dundee. The police took me to Dundee because obviously at that point I had had no tools to deal with any sort of emotional turmoil that was going on inside of me. And the only way I knew how to react was anger and violence. You know, so I got restrained and I got driven to Dundee in a police van at 12 years old. And I got dropped off at this house, and it was on a farm. And it was there was no other children there. It was just me and 2 members of staff, and it was consistently 24-hour support. You know, and after being here for a few months, I then got moved to a different home in Perth, and this was a residential unit, and I got told that I was going to live here till I was 16, and that was it. Like, I got told that this is where you're going to go to school here, you know. And I am not going to take away from the fact that I was a challenging child. Like, I had a lot going on, but I'm also not going to take away from the fact that there was no intervention or implementations to help me deal with what was going on inside. You know, and in this place, I started getting home at the weekends, but my mum and dad didn't want me in the house. So they would meet me at the train station and they would give me money. And sometimes I would go back to this children's home on a Sunday in the same clothes, like unwashed. And there was nothing like what, like, if you send if I sent my nephew away to, if my nephew came and stayed with me and I sent him back to his dad on a Sunday in the same clothes, you know, there would be alarm bells ringing there. Like, where's the care? You know, and I stayed in that place, and throughout all that, you know, I got a pamphlet about this thing today, and I was reading all the things that the children had been saying, and, you know, the restraints, you know, throughout my period of time in that school, multiple restraints, weekly restraints, and pinned down to the floor by 5-6 people. I just didn't know how to express how I felt. And every time I got angry, it was like a cry for help, like, please, like, explain. And, you know, you're sitting watching TV and somebody's sitting opposite you writing notes about you, you know, and then every week they would ask you if you wanted to go through your notes, you know, and they're, Hannah's unsettled today. So what did you do about Hannah being unsettled? Did you ask her why she was unsettled? Did you ask her why she was crying? Did you ask her why she didn't want to go to school that day? No, you didn't. Like, you wrote about it in a piece of paper. You know, and I left that place when I was 15, and I was supposed to go back to my parents, and I did for about 4 days, and it didn't work out. And I ended up in a homeless hostel. And I didn't know how to use a washing machine. You know, I went up to the desk on the second day and said that I had no underwear left and I needed them to wash my clothes. And the woman was like, are you being serious? And she had to take me and give me washing powder and show me how to use the washing machine. And then she told me that I had to stay there because sometimes people steal your clothes. And I was 16, like, I was 16 and I was absolutely petrified. You know, and I didn't know where to go and get help for, like, to get money. I didn't know that whilst I wasn't getting money, I was getting in rent, like rent arrears in the hostel. I didn't know that I wanted to go and get a job, but I got told if I got a job, it would be more expensive. It would be like £100 a week to live there because it was classed as supported accommodation. And I just really didn't have a chance. Like, I didn't get a chance. And I turned 16 in July, and I got arrested by the police. And of all days, I got taken up to court on Christmas Eve of 2008, and they remanded me in custody. And I'll never, ever, ever forget it. I was sitting in the cell, and they came to my door, and they told me that the bus had came. The bus was here to pick me up. And by this point, I'd known what remand was because I was in a cell with people, and they told me you'll either get out on bail or you'll get remanded. And if you get out on bail, you just have to come back again. You know, and I never knew any of this. And I got remanded, and they said the bus is here. So they took me into this bus, and it's like a little tiny square that you can't even stand up in. You can't stretch your legs. And I got drove to Court and Vale. And then I got to Court and Vale, and they told me to take all my clothes off, bend over. Like, this is graphic, but this is the reality of what's happening in the world right now, especially in Scotland. You know, and I was crying, and I was like, please, like, I don't have anything on me. Like, please, just like, you know, and the prison officer said to me, you look really scared. And I was like, I am. Like, and because due to overcrowding, I had to get put in with adults. So I got put in the adult section of the prison. You know, I woke up and it was Christmas Day, and I was in jail, and I was 16, and I was scared. And I really, really, like, it was quite a weird, surreal situation because I never really had a home, but I wanted to go home, but I didn't know where I wanted to go to. I just knew I didn't want to be there. You know, and it was a few days after that, I came out my cell, and I'd went into somebody's cell to ask them if they had a bar of chocolate, and they were smoking heroin. And then I started smoking it with them. You know, and where's the care there? Like, once again, where's the care there? You know, and after that, my life for the next 10 years was jail, institutions, courts. You know, I had lawyers that when I first started getting in trouble, I had a lawyer, and then he said he didn't want to represent me. And then I had to get another lawyer, and I didn't know. I just turned up to court on the day I was supposed to be there, and they told me that I had to get a lawyer. And I stopped somebody in the court that had a lawyer's outfit on, and I said, excuse me, would you be my lawyer? You know, and throughout all that time, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know, you know, I did have one worker that stuck by me the entirety of the time for about 8 years. You know, and I know this is about the youth justice, but like the council, like the support system, like getting passed around, like I couldn't get housed for 22 months. I was coming out of prison after spending maybe 14 months, 15 months in prison, getting told to report to the homeless, going to the homeless and getting put back in a hostel. And this is at like 16, 17, 18, 19, like between the time of being 16 and 21, I spent about 4 years of that in prison. And it came to a point for me, especially when I was younger, that it was easier to be in prison because I got 3 meals a day, I got my clothes washed, and people had to pretend that they cared about me. They had some level of care for me that had to be abided by. And that's sad. Like, that's really sad. You know, and I'm aware I've got like a few 7 minutes left because I stuck a timer on. You know, but my life is not like that today. You know, like, and I want to finish with that. Like, even though I dramatically and drastically got failed by the system, There was a lot of failures on my part. And once again, I will not take away from the fact that I was a very, very hard person to deal with. But I believe that even so that was the case. Like, people, I'm just away to study social care. You know, I'm looking to go into this kind of job role. It's taken me, I got in 2017, I joined a 12-step fellowship, and I've maintained nearly 4 years of complete abstinence. You know, I was on methadone from the age of 19 up until 26. And that was another failure, because I went there for help, and they put me on methadone, and I was a baby. Like, you're still a child at 19. I don't care what anybody says, especially when you've had no experience in the real world. You know, I think the biggest thing is learning to regulate your emotions and deal with your trauma. And I never got that opportunity, you know, and I went to this place asking for help. And they put me on a methadone script, and there was no talk about what the steps were, how I was going to come off it, where the support was, you know. And within 6 months, I was on 120 milligrams of methadone a day. I was 19. And on top of that, I was using other substances, you know. And I'm not going to say that going to prison made me a drug addict, because it didn't. There's a lot of other aspects that led to me taking drugs. But it didn't help at 16 getting introduced to heroin, and then every time going into prison, introduced to more substances and more substances. You know, every substance I took for the first time in prison, and that was between the age of 16 and 19. And now it's totally different. Like, I've just finished studying exercise and sports science, and I've decided to move on to social care, because I feel like, without being egotistical, I feel like I can make a difference. Like, and I would love to be able to do that. It's just having the patience and waiting, because I have an extensive criminal record. I don't have a lot of experience. You know, I'm trying my best, and I'm not going to say that life's fantastic, because it's really, really hard. It took me to 26 to start dealing with my trauma and getting therapy and going to a 12-step fellowship, and, you know, starting to really sieve through my life and understanding all the things that I've learned in the last 4 years about my emotions, about my trauma, about mindfulness, about how it affects how my trauma in my past affects me in my adult life today. It took me 26 years to get the help for that. And I seeked it on my own, because I was so sick of being sick. I was so tired of being in pain all the time. Sorry, my neighbours are doing their flat up, and they just put the drill on. And, you know, life is hard, but I truly believe that I was put on this. I believe that I had got the opportunity to get clean so I can help other people. And I got the opportunity to speak at this today, to give me some experience and to share my experience with everybody here. But I'm don't really have much more to say, but I just want to thank you for, like, allowing me to come and speak today. And if there's anybody out there that wants to employ an absolute superstar like myself, I will send you my CV. So thank you very much, and I'll just give it back to you there, Bruce.
Brilliant, thank you so much, Hannah, and absolutely, we need to keep your amazing leadership right at the heart of what we're doing. You won't have had a chance to look at the chat yet or on Twitter, but it's absolutely blowing up with people saying the same thing, that right from the start of your presentation, such a powerful contribution that you said a minute ago that you want to make a difference. You're already making a huge difference. You're acting as a human rights defender. The bravery that you've shown in telling your story and using it to affect change is the most important thing. And I can't even summarize for you just how much love there is for you flowing out of the chats and Twitter, and how impressed everyone was for that, really. And again, people using eloquent, moving speech. A number of people have saying that they've been in tears thinking about what the adults around you, that the system did wrong, and how that was making you feel right from the start of not being involved, where is the care, and that how your distressed behavior and the trauma, how you internalized that and felt that some of it was your fault when none of it was. And I think that I can't properly summarize just all of the stuff that everybody is saying, any more than just to say that you're absolutely amazing and you're already playing a hugely important role in whatever role that you decide to go on to play. There are people across Scottish society and internationally, I'm sure, who would love to be working with you and helping you deliver that change. But also a huge wake-up call in terms of how do we turn some of the rhetoric, some of the words that people are saying around children's rights into the change in reality, because this shouldn't have happened to you and it shouldn't be happening to children at the moment in Scotland. And so we really need to change that. I know we're starting to move into the coffee break, and I'm not going to be able to kind of formulate a series of questions for you, Hannah, but if you wouldn't mind, could I come back to you with just one question, which would be, what would
Sorry, and Hannah, I don't know what Bruce was going to ask you there, but I think I'm going to guess and say, as social workers, as professionals, Hannah, what can we do differently so that other children and young people don't have the experience you had? And on behalf of social work, I'd just like to apologise.
I was muted there, sorry. That's a really broad question, because I think to answer that question, there's so many aspects to it. You know, each individual child to a certain degree works differently, and I'm sure that you would know that. So to have one structure, one pathway, one route that applies to each individual child, it's not going to work. Like, I think it's about, for me, it's about learning, sitting down with that child and children and learning them individually instead of trying to apply a structured plan or method to their behavior. Because I know for myself that when somebody took full attention to me and my needs and me as an individual instead of a statistic or a number or a caseload, it made a difference. It made a difference that person was learning me, like getting to know me as a person and not a file that was placed in front of them. And I think that's the biggest thing, is listen to the child, listen to them, because they're like, the majority of them are crying out for help, and they've got so much things going on inside them that they don't know. They don't know what they need. They need a loving, caring adult to sit down and be friends with them and care for them and respect them and get to know them. Because it took 2 years. It took me 2 years to be able to take my eyes off the ground and look at somebody, because they stuck around for 2 years. They stuck around. They didn't leave me. And this was a support worker. They didn't leave. They stuck around and persistently kept going. And I think that's where the change is treat the child as an individual, and don't stick a method on them or something that you've read out a book, or like, and I know that's a hard thing to say. Like, I don't mean to be rude when I say that, but you can read all the books in the world, but when you sit down and get to know somebody and how they work and how they speak and how they react, a person can flourish when they like gain respect from that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Hannah, just on behalf of us all, thank you so much for sharing.